Hey everybody, welcome to Remove Logic Radio. Um, Remove Logic Radio show is a place where people who are stuck get unstuck. Why remove logic? Because God is not bound by logic or logistics. And so today I just wanted to welcome you to the show. We have a wonderful guest, a dear friend of mine, Rickie Clark. He is an activist. He is a pastor. He is many things. I mean, multi things. And so I just want to welcome you to the show. Today we're going to be talking about um, some probably some heavy things, but we want to just kind of hit everybody on this show. We're not always want to talk about some of the things that are just that are pretty, but we want to talk about some of the things that might be ugly in conversation, but necessary to get people moving into to that next place in God. Amen. So we want to see about getting Rickie in. So if you bear with me today, I'm my own tech person. So just I'm sorry. I am recording from my home in Pflugerville, Texas. So I'm my own tech person today. So bear with me while I get Rickie into the studio with me.
Hello, how are you doing, Lacey?
I'm good. I'm good. Welcome to Remove Logic Radio. I'm glad that you decided to say yes to my invitation. I wanted to just talk to you because you're always busy, always doing something. And Remove Logic Radio is something that God put on my heart to help people that are stuck get unstuck. And you are certainly one of those people in the community that work to help people to move forward.
Thank you.
So I've had my own encounter with you, with my son. When I thought he was stuck, you told him that the grades that he had didn't define him.
Mhm.
And he went on to look, God erased the whole senior year just in the conversation and what you do. And he went right on into college and, has his master's degree, made the dean's list, just excel just from that moment of interaction with you. So
Uh,
certainly you were one of the ones that I wanted to introduce on this platform because you're always busy, always doing something and always helping. So I'm going to present you to some and introduce you to others in this internet radio land. I was talking with you the other day and you brought up something. There was a word that you used about trauma. And
yeah.
I just want you to take a moment, talk about what you're doing and how you arrived at that word that we talked about. I want you to
Okay.
define the word, but
Okay.
I just think somebody can be helped. So without further ado, Rickie Clark, take it away.
All right. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you too. You made the comment about your son. Not only did he go to college, he went to the college that I graduated from.
Right.
There's a lots of kids, but yeah, and grad and excelled, and they still talk about him now. So, yeah, to God be the glory. Yeah.
Yes,
Now it's Jarvis Christian University. So
that's
me and your
right.
son are now alumni from the same university. All right.
Yes, yeah.
So that speaks volumes. So I'm still doing the work that God had me to do, right? So right now I'm currently acting as the director for the Fort Worth ISD My Brother's Keeper initiative. This initiative was started by Barack Obama like in 2014. And in 2016, he invited innovative programs throughout the country to come to the White House. And we were selected as one of those programs for the innovation that we do. So there are MBK programs all over the country, and they all do something different. But what we did was we realized that 50% of men of color drop out of high school, 65% drop out of college after 2 years, but 78% graduate if they join a fraternity or play a sport. So
Uh-huh.
we decided we'll start fraternities in middle schools and high schools and start teaching the brothers brotherhood at an early age. And so we don't pledge them anything like that. But they have to understand, what does it became my brother's keeper? When was it found? 2014 by who? Barack Obama. For what? To help young men of color transition from one life stage to another. We meet in circles because we're all leaders. We stand in
Right.
deep formation
Right.
because we have each other's back. We even stand from the shortest to the tallest, so, to show evolution from boys to men.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we make it important to do for our young men is to define what a man is. And
Right.
we define man as a male that act, thinks, and live responsible. Anytime you're not
Wow.
acting, thinking, and living responsible, you're just a boy masquerading as a man.
Can you
Because
just say that one more time? How you define a male? Say that again.
so we define man, not male. We define
Man.
man
Man.
as a male
As
who
a
act
male.
as a male who acts, thinks, and live responsible.
That's good. That's
So
good.
anytime they're not acting, thinking, and living responsible, they just boys masquerading as men.
Wow. Wow.
And you know, the man ain't defined by how old you are, how many kids you have, what kind of mustache you have, what car you drive, things of that nature. So when we start the program, the first thing we do is we ask them, can we get all the men to stand up? And
Mm.
surely all the boys stand up. But then when we ask them how you know you're a man, they begin to sit down, right?
Mm.
They realize it. And you'll hear one of them say, well, yeah, I know I'm a man because I got one of these. I tell them those ain't men, those males. Dogs have those too. So that defines male, but it doesn't define man. And so they
Man.
have a proper understanding of what that is. So they can tell you what a man is. One of the ones will say, well, you know, I'm in my house. I say, well, who paid for that house you live in, my mama? Who paid for that bed you sleep in, ma? Sit down,
Mm.
boy.
Mm.
Sit down, boy, because men have keys and their name on the homes in which they live in.
Right.
Now,
Right.
boys don't, but men do. And you have to tell a boy what to do. You don't have to tell a man to do that. You tell a boy to take the garbage out. You don't tell a man to take the garbage out. He
Right.
knows it needs to be taken out. And so those are some of the things that we instill in our young men. And we teach them massive, massive, massive doses of African history and Mexican Latino history. Why?
Wow.
Because if
Wow.
you don't know what, you can't know what
Right. You
is.
won't know.
Yeah, and if you
Right.
don't know what is, you ill prepared for that to come. So wise people study his story, her story, and my story. And if you
Come
think
on.
about the word history, it sounds like his story, but my story sounds like mystery.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we instill in the boys understanding of who they are and remind them that it was our ancestors who taught Plato, Pythagoras, and Socrates. When they thought the earth was flat, we knew that the earth was round. So the pyramids are already built. We remind them that when the Europeans come on the scene, they don't come on the scene till 30 BC,
Come on now. Yeah.
right? They don't come on the scene in 30 BC. Well, by the time they
Right.
get there, we already have schools, we already have universities, we already have scrolls. The pyramids are already built. The Sphinx was already
Mm.
there. We've already mapped out the stars because we put the pyramid in the center of the earth, right? 48
Right.
stories high, 755 feet wide, taking 2,300,000 stones to build. We've already done that.
Right.
Then the Europeans come on the scene.
Mm.
You think
Come on
about
now.
that. And they'll
Yeah.
say, well, you know, Alexander built the first library. Well, what? He built the first library where they buried the lies, but he couldn't have built the first library.
Come on, Ricky.
Well, how do we know that? Because where he get the books from, where he get the scrolls from. They couldn't read or write.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember? They
Yeah.
couldn't read or write. And we let them know that. And black people, we've never been in caves. We didn't have to go through an ice age. When we think about the ice age, when I was in school, we think of the whole world froze. Africa never froze.
Yeah.
Those
So
markings, those
you're tearing down some of those ideas
stereotypes.
and
So
some
when
of
they
that
come in,
the
oh yeah.
programming that
So when we
helps to
talk to,
hold people back.
yeah, correct. So
Um,
when we talk to them, let me give you one more that really gets them. We would ask questions like, "Well, how many digits in the world?" And they all think like, "Well, how many digits?" Yeah, I ask a question, "How many digits in the world?" And they be like, I didn't ask you numbers. I asked digits." Well, there's only 9 digits in the world.
mm,
Well, where do 9 digits come from? Right? And then you tell me that 12 inches equals a foot. Well, who foot? Mine don't equal 12 inches. Where did those measurements come
where
from?
did they come from?
So we taught the measurements. Pythagoras can't be the father of math, and Euclid can't be the father of geometry. Why?
Mm,
Because they
mm,
can't build a pyramid.
My. Come
So
on now.
that there we go. So we talked about that, and then the other thing that we start talking about, we realize this is social emotional learning,
Wow. Okay.
and that's
Okay.
where I want to take you to. We want to talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
right?
I was when we started talking about that, it sent me on a search, and when I think about remove logic and the pathology of trauma and some of the things
Right.
that we hit, one of the things that came up for me just
Or
immediately was
triggers you.
the
Yeah.
logic of trauma.
Right.
Trauma itself has a logic.
Yes. Let's talk
Um,
about.
and so I said, okay, so you gave me a word. Let's go with that word
All right.
first so that we
So
can put that out there.
so let's put that out there. The word that I put out there was called epigenetics. Remember that? Epigenetics.
Epigenetics. Okay.
Yeah,
Expound on
epigenetics.
that for us.
So I'll expound on that, and then I'll come back to what we mean by the trauma aspect.
Okay.
Genetics in and of itself means that you're passing genes from one generation to the next. Epa meaning I'm passing it generationally, right? So it can
Uh-huh.
be done in 5 generations, not one, not two, not three, but 5 generations. And we have to understand that the body keeps count. So we're seeing our children do things and we're doing things, we repeat the same thing over and over again. And really, it could have been something that was passed down from your grandmother, from your grandfather, from your auntie, right, who didn't resolve their trauma. So we have the kids to take this test. You might be familiar with it. It's called ASA. And ASA
Uh-huh.
stands for
All right.
Adverse Childhood Experiences. So when you take the ASA test, there's normally 10 questions in the ASA test. So there's a list of questions that they ask. And if you respond to one of them, you've had some trauma,
Gotcha.
right? So
Gotcha.
what we're trying to do is to help the kids understand what that trauma is. So we'll ask the question, what is trauma? And they will define it. They will say that trauma is like something you experience that just keep coming in your mind and you never forget about it. Right?
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
Okay. And tell me a little bit more about this trauma. So they were like, yeah, like you experience it's something bad that just keep you have dreams about it, you think about it all the time. And then the question that you ask is, okay, raise your hand if you've ever experienced trauma. And then they would all raise their hand. And then we will remind them there's only 3 things you do when you experience trauma.
Uh-huh.
You either fight, flight, or freeze.
Or freeze.
And what's deep about this trauma aspect of it, remember, all of us have experienced trauma. But in your trauma, you either fight, flight, or freeze. So we ask them, okay, well, what did you do when you experienced your trauma? Don't tell me what your trauma is. Just tell me what you did when you experienced your trauma. So they'll be like, I froze,
Hmm.
I flight, I ran.
Uh-huh.
And then
Uh-huh.
most of the boys gonna say, I fought. And you have to remember, however you experience that trauma, you still experiencing that trauma. So if you
Same
fought, you
trauma.
still
Come
fighting,
on. That's right.
right?
That's right.
If you ran, you still running.
You still running.
If
Yeah.
you froze, you still freezing.
You still
But
freezing.
what's even deep about it is that when you talk about the epigenetics aspect of it, whatever you experience at that time, whatever age it was, you go back to that.
So
So there,
that's a arrested development.
yeah, you
So
called it
you're
arrested development. Right,
arrested development. So
right. Or you
again,
call it a
that's
trophy
person
trauma.
you yeah, trauma trophies where you
Right.
stuck in that one place, but not only are you stuck, you're repeating the behavior
And
even
not
as
only
an
us,
adult.
yeah,
And
but
then
not
you
only are you
also
repeating it, you passing it down.
you passing it down.
So
And
let's talk
then
about that. Look,
let's talk about that because
right.
when I begin to this word the phrase
Epigenetic.
the logic of trauma.
Uh-huh.
Trauma has its own language. So
Yes, it
it can
does.
refer to what an underlying pattern, a mechanism that
Yeah.
governs how trauma affects you as an individual, your relationships, your psychology,
Yeah.
spirituality, emotionally, the very
Yeah.
things that you're talking about.
That's
But
right.
you're digging into a place with young people, so
Right. So
that's gonna cut out some stuff that's going
well,
to help them to move forward. And if you identify something,
that's
then
right.
you begin to walk in the change as you identify. So let's talk about the
So
trauma
one of the
trophy.
ways, so
Go
one of the
ahead.
ways that we do with the kids. So now that you said you froze and things that people understand with trauma, the part it messes with your mind and body. So now whether you ran, whether you froze, or whether you fight, Now you're questioning, what didn't I do? I should have done something
Should have
else.
done something different.
Or I could have did this, or was it my fault? So now some people take it on. Oh, the reason why my daddy molested me because I was so cute. I tempted
Mm,
him. So now you're questioning the trauma in and of itself. We got to
wow.
get deep about that, right?
Yeah,
So now
yeah.
you're questioning what I did, knowing that your daddy did that. And then there's some other things that comes in place. You're dealing with cognitive dissonance. Now you have to separate yourself from that because whatever it was that happened, uh, you still in the house with that person.
Still in the house.
Right? And we walking
Yeah,
around like ain't nothing ever said. And then the
yeah.
sad part is, even though it didn't happen to you, it happened to your little sister. It happened to your brother. Well, it affects everybody because we
Everybody.
know that it's happening.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
So we ask them about this trauma. So they say, okay, well, tell me then the next question you have to ask, and this is the part that's deep. Who's brave enough?
Huh.
Not who's safe enough. Who's brave enough to talk about their trauma?
To talk about it.
Because the talk part is like when you get stung by a bee, it stung you. It ain't going away, right? Now you can
Right.
take the pain out, but you remember when you got stung by that bee. You can be 97 years old. Remember that time that bee bit you? You remember
Mm,
really what it was? It's the same thing with that trauma. You remember
right.
what age you were and everything. So when trauma bites you and you've been bit, and all of us have,
Yeah, yeah.
now we're questioning these traumas. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. There's a couple of books I want to share with you all as well. The
Okay.
first book that I would remind everybody to get is called "What Happened to You," and
What
that's by
happened to you?
"What Happened to You" by Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce Perry. More Bruce Perry than Oprah, but they co-wrote the book. And in
Okay.
this book, it says what happened to you. It talks about a scenario of this young kid. He's in class, right? And he's really like in middle school. They call it the fifth grade syndrome. So we're in the fifth grade, but he's just come home. He's sitting in the class. He's not even. He's sitting in the principal's office, and he's going
Mm-hmm.
through something. He ain't shared nobody because when you have trauma, you don't have words to explain it.
Right.
You can't explain it then, right?
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
struggle to explain it later. But remember,
Right.
you 5 years old. How do you explain that what you experienced? So let me
Right.
break it down. So the little boy's sitting there, and everybody see him over there, and all of a sudden, the principal comes in with a suit on, with cologne on, dressed just like his stepfather, and he touches the
Mm.
boy on the shoulder. When he touches him on the shoulder, the boy knocks his hands off. He like start cussing him out, going off, snapping at him, and he was like, "Man, what's wrong with him?" He just keep going. They like, "Why is he doing that?" And what's wrong with the boy? And now they
Yeah.
take him to the counselor's office. Then they take him to the therapist. Now they ready to get him some Ritalin and the things like that. And then all of a sudden, Dr. Bruce Perry comes in.
Come on. Come on.
And when Dr. Bruce Perry comes in, he says to the young man, not what's wrong with you. He begins by asking him, what happened to you?
Come on.
So we've got to quit asking what's wrong.
What's
Because
wrong?
what's wrong triggers the trauma in and of itself.
Yeah.
What happens is someone's concerned about what I have to say. And however I have to say it. He
Yeah.
said, well, not what's wrong with you. What happened? And the boy began to say that before he came to school that his stepdaddy was beating his mama and beat him. And when he came home, got to the school, the principal looked like him and got the same Old Spice cologne. So it triggered him.
Triggers. So
So
we're
that
talking
triggered.
about trauma triggers now.
Trauma
So
triggered. So, but if you
right.
don't even know you had trauma,
Right.
you don't know you being triggered. You
Right.
just acting out on those stimuli that's in there because your
This
body
is
and your mind is saying it. And there's
right.
things about our body. So let's talk a little one more about what happened to you. So then the other one, they talked about this young lady who had went through lots of things. Foster parent, went in the home with a parent, did this and that. And now they putting in the hospital because her blood pressure won't go down. And they don't know why her blood pressure keeps going up. Don't know what's
Mm.
wrong. So Dr. Bruce Perry goes and see her. So while she in the hospital, her blood pressure keep going up. So Dr. Bruce Perry goes sees her, and her blood pressure goes up. Why he in there? And he like, whoa. He notices as well. But then he realized that he's at the hospital, and they're at the front of the hospital in a room, and every time the ambulance comes in or a police car,
Mm.
it's her.
Triggers.
She didn't
Gotcha.
need no medicine. They needed to put her in a room further away from the front door so that she wouldn't be
Silence.
triggered
My.
by the alarms.
My
Now,
God.
not just, but these are the things I'm talking about. So if
Right.
that's just two components, imagine when these kids come into school
Hmm.
being triggered, and we don't even know we triggered them. right? And the sad part about the trigger aspect that is, if you're the teacher and you ain't dealing with your own, you subject trigger somebody else in and of itself.
Right.
And it ain't even your fault. So
Right.
let's move to that one. Because
Yeah.
then I
Yeah.
moved from that book, I moved to the book entitled It Didn't Start With You.
It
And
didn't
that's
start
deep.
with that's
That's
deep.
just
That
deep.
that's a let's just put a push pin right there.
Yeah.
It didn't start with you.
It didn't start
That
with
that's going to look, that's going to remove some logic for somebody right there, that's going to liberate you even in that. Just somebody making a declaration to a person to say, you know what, it didn't start with you and it's not your fault.
you. That's right. Well, to know that it didn't start with me, we don't have to spread fault.
Right. Right.
So we don't even have to speak of that. Your mind in and of itself says to you, oh, I didn't do this. So in this book called It Didn't Start With You, he talks about, as a matter of fact, the guy was a therapist and he was going through things himself. And his eyesight was going away. Right?
Hmm.
And as his eyesight going away, he wondered what can he do. So he went to go shut down his business, went and seen the Dalai Lama, stayed
Uh-huh.
there for 6 months, met with them. He walks up there with the white sheet on, and the guy tell him, go back to your father. He was like,
Wow.
what? He
Wow.
said, go back and see, go embrace your mother. He was like, oh, that ain't gonna happen. So he's still in there, he doing his thing, eyesight still going away. The doctor told him that they don't know what it is, but his eyesight going away. He goes, sees another person, goes there, stay there 6 months. Go through the Dalai Lama stuff, go get himself with himself, kept him blindfolded for 24 hours, all this. He did everything. They took him to the bathroom when he went into. So now he goes to the guy, and the guy tell him, go home and see you. He's like, wait a minute, hold up. That ain't gonna happen. Then he just went on and gave in. And went home to see his mother. This is the part that's gonna get deep. Goes home to see his mother, his mother's father. He in San Francisco. In San Francisco, they got those hills. So you park your car and walk up the driveway. So the mother coming down, he walking up, and when she grabbed him, he just felt, he didn't want to be hugged by her. And he
Mm.
stood there and she hugged him and loved him and talked to him. And eventually they together. And she tells him some stories about when he was young. And said
Mm.
that when you were a baby, when you were born, you came out, I didn't hold you or touch you for the first 3 weeks.
Wow.
And
Wow.
he was like, what was that about, Mom? He said, because some babies, when they born, their brain is like they have an indent in their body, and they're not deformed. It's just the body ain't developed like it's supposed to.
Right.
The
Right.
babies all the time. So his was indented, and she said she didn't want to touch him. So that was one. And then he continued to talk to her. Come to find out, when he was 3 years old, when he was 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old, his mother got an appendicitis.
Mm.
She had to go to the hospital, was gone
Mm.
for 2, 3 months. But when
Uh-huh.
she left, he would go in her room and just smell her clothes and just would
Oh
do all that. And then eventually she came home. And when she came home, he didn't want to touch her.
my God.
Wouldn't touch her, hadn't touched her from that on. He been thinking that his mama didn't like him.
Didn't like him.
And his mama thinking that the son don't like him, but not
No
realizing what
connection. No connection.
hold up. And then he goes to see his father, who was dealing with PTSD. He thought that his father left the house because he was too disruptive. But his father left the house because he was dealing with PTSD, snapping on the mother and the son, and moved down the street.
Wow.
Turned into an alcoholic, went through all that. He goes to talk to his father. They resolve their issue. Eventually, his father dies.
My God.
So now he goes back and start doing the epigenetics. That's the part of
Mm.
here.
Mm.
So they
Okay.
start doing this research. And in this research, when you deal with epigenetics, they would always experiment rats. I'm like, well, what rats have to do with humans? We have 95% of the same body functions and everything that a rat does.
Uh-huh.
98, I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Right? So that's why they always tested rats. So they did these rats, and what they realized when the rats was born, the mother that looks, they lick them, lick them, lick them, lick them, lick them. That's how they show them that they love them. So they licked on them, licked on them. When the rats that they didn't lick on grew up to act a certain way. But the rats
Mm.
did lick on
Mm. Mm.
had a healthier life. They felt more safe. They felt more secure. Da 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 da.
Right.
Whoa. So that was one experiment. Then they did another experiment with these same rats, a different group of rats. They start poisoning the rats with this certain poison that if you go around, it would poison and you'll die. So eventually, the rats, if they got even a smell of it, a glimpse of it, they would go in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, they would go anywhere by it.
Wow.
Well, then they followed their litters. 5 years later, these rats had never even smelled it before. but we got
Mm.
to go in that direction. Damn, that's deep. So he began to do the research, and he said that we have to understand that when we talk about our DNA that our parents passed down, that's only 2%. Look like your daddy, sit like your mama, only
Well,
2%. But the
yeah.
other 98%, you ready? Is the stress, the depressions, the anxieties, all the things that they dealt with is being passed down from one generation to the next.
Wow.
So imagine we went through enslavement. There was no counsel, there was no therapy. So all that we passed, we're still passing it down.
Passing it down.
Generation. We call it
Generation.
generational curses in the church.
Curse.
It's not the curse, it's because the body keeps count.
Count.
The body keeps count. So let me move from that. So we talked about what happened to you. I told you it didn't start with you. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. It didn't start. We talk about the epigenetics. So
Okay.
they found out that there was this young lady. We'll go with the young man. He was a very smart kid in school doing his thing, and he got scholarship, went off to college. And then one night, he was 21 years old. He couldn't sleep. 19, not 21. He was 19. He turned 19. So he was 18, went to school, was there his freshman year, sophomore year. He in class, he at home, all of a sudden he wake up, he couldn't go to sleep. He freezing cold. Didn't know why he was freezing. So he started playing the game, couldn't go to sleep. Well, now he had insomnia, can't go to class. He loses his scholarship. They have to give him counseling, all that kind of stuff. They don't know what's wrong. Sitting home, he gets home. They say, well, no, you need a therapist. So he goes and sees the therapist that wrote the book. It didn't start with you. And he asked him this question that I want the audience to hear. He asked the question, anybody in your family ever dealt with that before? He was like, no. So he told him, well, go home and shake the family tree. Look, go home and shake the family tree. So he goes home and shake the family tree. Come to find out that his mother's brother, which is his uncle that he had never met, was 19 years old in Canada, putting up the pole for the light stage, fell down and ended up having hypothermia and died out. Well, his sister knew about it. She was pregnant at the time, and her stress, her emotions, her feelings, all that she felt, she passed it down to her son.
Wow, come on.
And when he figured that out, he was like, wow, so I want you to stand in these shoes, and I want you to speak to your ancestors. So that's why we want to go to that. We running from that. Talk to him, ask him for forgiveness, da-da-da-da-da. The boy got healed, didn't need medicine anymore, didn't need therapy. The next young lady comes in there, she wants to commit suicide. And he asked her, well, how do you want to do it? How do you want to kill yourself like that? She's like, I just want to get in an incinerator at my uncle's plant, where the paint plant at, and just jump in the incinerator. When I finish, my body is just like, well, who wants to die like that? If anybody in your family ever did that? She's like, no. It's like, well, go home and shake the family tree.
Shake the family tree.
She goes home and shake the family tree. Comes about not her grandmother, her great-grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. She saw her mother, her father, her sister, and her brother go into the gas chamber. Well, they saved her. She didn't go in. They bring her to Chicago, right? She grows up, meets a man in Chicago, get married, depressed about it. She had remorse that she didn't die with her mother, father, sister, brother. Dealing with it all that time. She's stressing her emotions, has a baby, pass it down to her kid pass it down to her. It's her great-grandmother.
So there's a psychology and a physiology also.
Oh yes, that's the part I'm talking about. The physical, more so psychology. Because I'm going to move to the next book.
Okay.
Because it tells you, so we know that what happened to you, it didn't start with you, which led me to the next book, which is called My Grandmother's Hands. So if that happened to a Holocaust survivor, what's happening to people from Africa, Holocaust survivors?
Yeah.
So this book is entitled My Grandmother's Hands. Right? My Grandmother's Hands. And he starts off in the story by saying to his grandmother, sitting there talking to him, he's like, Grandma, why are your hands so rough like that? She got rough hands? You want to know why his grandmother's hands are so rough? And he said, baby, I've been picking cotton since I was 4 years old. He was like, oh, picking cotton. So what did that have to do with it? And so When you pick cotton, it's thorns. It pricks your hand when you pick it.
Pricks. Uh-huh.
But the body is so magnificent that it cherishes itself. It protects itself. So the body creates this barrier on the hands. That's why the hands are rough. It don't hurt to pick it. You didn't get it healed. It just protected it.
Just
Well,
protect.
that's what our bodies are doing. So this trauma that we've been dealing with, the body's just protecting it. Causes you to act certain ways. It's
Wow.
fight, flight, or free. The body's doing it, not the mind.
Not
The
the
body
mind.
in and of itself. So he's talking to her and he's asking his mother about that. So he goes through the story. When you hear it, you realize that everybody dealing with trauma in our
Right.
communities from the African perspective.
Yes.
And what you
Yeah.
have to hear is that it gets deep because we don't talk about it.
No, we don't.
There's a saying in our community that you do not discuss family business on the public square. What
Yeah.
happens in this house, what?
Stays in the house.
And me and you didn't grow in the same house.
No, but we
I
have
wanted
that
you to finish that
understanding.
comment.
Right. Right.
But not only do we have understanding, I say that all over the country.
Yeah.
And we respond with the same way. But what we
Yeah.
have to understand is the secrets in our houses that's killing us.
Can you say that again? I like that you said overstand.
Yes, not understand. We got to overstand this.
Overstand it.
Yeah, to understand
And
it,
then,
we beneath it.
right.
But to overstand is to get on top of what's
To get on top of it. And then you said the secrets in our houses
that's killing us.
It's killing us.
So we don't talk about it. Not only do we not share with the people outside the house, we don't even talk about it inside the house.
That's right.
So now, little Fred was fundled by his uncle. Fundled by his uncle. He goes to his mother, which is his brother, said, that's not true. He wouldn't do that. We don't do that around here. Don't you ever say that again. He went, but no, that was not true. Don't you ever say that again. But you told him that he was 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old. But he know he was fundled by his brother. But you don't believe it and you don't talk about it. Next thing you know, now he gay. You wonder, why is he like that? Oh, I mean, not that that's the only way, but you didn't fundle him. They don't know. They confused. We don't know what is right or wrong.
Right.
And the first time somebody touch you in your private part and you arouse, that you look for it.
Yeah, you're steady chasing that feeling.
That's right. That arousement.
Be it. Let's deal with that.
I'm not talking about it though.
Yeah, and let's deal with that too, because it manifests itself in promiscuity. It manifests itself
in a saying, sister, too, that hurt people hurt
people. Right.
Hurt people. So what I'm saying is now baby hurt turns into adolescent hurt, who turns into teen hurt, it turns to the adult hurt, and now the hurt is doing the hurting.
Right. And then guess what? The hurt is doing the hurting, but it's so familiar that you're not even considering it as hurt.
No, guess what you call it?
It becomes a normal behavior, and it's so up under the rug, and you don't talk about it, that it's not even considered. Right. It's not considered. The victim
becomes a norm.
That's right. It's a normal thing.
There are situations where the mother was raped, the daughter raped, the niece raped, the niece raped.
Yeah.
Not by the same person. But now your body, you become predisposed to it because I'm talking about the epigenetics.
Right.
Is that deep?
Right. That's deep.
It's the and guess what changes it? If we talk about it, the sting doesn't hurt as much.
It doesn't.
Now I'm not as depressed about it. Now it's not on my body, which means that I get to release it from mine, which means I don't pass it on to the next generation. Right. So in that book, it talks about that. My grandmother's hands. So not only do we have to the racialized trauma and the pathway to mending our hearts and bodies. So let me get deep about this. So the next thing you know in the chapter, I told you about the hands. So the mother says, so boy, you keep asking grandmother about her hands, ask her about her feet.
Come on.
I said, what?
Her feet.
Ask her about her feet. I didn't think about that part. Well, if her hands got thorns and healed, she walk around, she ain't got no shoes on picking cotton.
Picking cotton.
Became like that as well. So guess what? Our bodies become adapted to the situations that we in. So if you're watching your mother being raped by the master or watching your wife being raped by the master, your body makes you strong. You're like, they strong, they resilient, they can handle anything. No, we can't.
Yeah.
And then that all breaks down to stress, which causes us to have diabetes, heart attack. You want to know why we smoking weed, why we drinking, why we having sex, why we being promiscuous, why we do. It's all written in our body. It's all. And the thing about it is, and I love what Oprah said. And I'm gonna be personal. And my sister had been raped, and I didn't know that. But when she told me and told me what happened, I used to think something was wrong with my sister. She's still on drugs right now today, right? But in the book, it said that they do the weed, the drug, to try to get regulated
Wow.
because you don't even know what they going through. So now
You
you
don't
stand up on the corner. So I talk to my grandson. We drive up to the bus stop and we see some homeless people. Me and Rickie, man, which is my grandson. I call him Rickie, man. The comment is not what's wrong with him, Paul. The question is, what happened to him?
What happened?
Not what's wrong with my sister Vicky.
What
What
happened?
happened to my sister Vicky? Which
Wow.
gives
Wow.
us the humanity to love our brothers and sisters where they are and not where we want them to be. Because I'm still talking about Trump. I got one more. I know you
No,
got,
you're fine. You're good.
okay,
This is
we
good because, and in order for us to, we have to see what's built on top of all of this.
Well, let me
What
be.
is the thing? Because now we move beyond the symptomatic things to the root of that thing, and that's the only way we're gonna get past.
Well, that's why I want to say that. That's hurtful, but I'll tell you, and you got to be vulnerable, and you got to put it out there.
Yeah.
I even took a look at my own self. So when you take this ASA score, there's a scoring on it. So you can score 1 to 10. So this one guy was like, "Well, Miss Rickie, I feel." And so we asked him, "Well, how do you feel after you did?" It triggered me, and then one said, "Well, I feel like I'm pretty good because everybody else got like 8s and 9s, and all I got is a 1." But I reminded him, if you have 1, you have trauma.
You have trauma.
So because trauma is trauma. It doesn't make a difference whether you were raped, it was this, whether you were that. Trauma is trauma.
It's trauma.
So now we understand it. Oh, I'm not greater than you. You're not greater than me. We all gonna have to deal, and we're gonna have to do it together.
Right.
So I'm gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up for you. You need to throw up for me.
Wow.
Because you may be telling me some things that I may not have to experience. My son may not have to go through. But we holding it all in. And when we hold it all in, we're damaging ourselves and not liberating ourselves or cut free someone else. So in the book, it tells you ways in which we can deal with that, right? It talks about what the police go through when they dealing with it. Even white people, what they have to deal with, which is deep about it. And then what we can do as a people. So he talks about how the police dealing with their trauma, how racism is the trauma, and then how we, as Black people, how can we deal? Okay, well, Rickie, how can we deal with it? I'm glad you asked.
Yes, that was my next question.
So my question has always been, and thank you for asking me that too. What did we deal with it before there were drugs? All the other things that we do. Before there was a counselor, a therapist. What are some of the things that we did to do? Come to find out, the things that we did. You ready?
I don't know. Come on.
We doing it. We talked. Wow. We created a tribe amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
There were no cell phones. There was nothing distractions. All we had was each other. So Fred did get his genes get beside himself and he touched Rebecca. We dealt with that right then. We didn't have that under the rug. He went to the elders. The elder was like, that's inappropriate. Da 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 da. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna deal with her and we're gonna deal with you. Right? When the sister did something she thought that was inappropriate. Remember, we walked around with they didn't have no bras on.
Right.
They showed their breasts.
Right.
They didn't have the men didn't have no drawers on. They
culture. Come on, deal with the culture. Yeah.
So you ain't strong enough to not touch her. You can't get to press your lower self. So we dealt with those things. And some of the other ways that we dealt with it, we would play the African drums. Did you know that music soothes the
piece? It does.
So,
that's right.
So, and guess what? One of the things that they did to Black people when we came to America, the only musical instrument that has ever been banned in the world, in America, matter of fact, in the world, is the African drum.
Wow.
You can get together and have drum circles and beat it out. So yeah, I did do that. Yeah, I was wrong. But there's always that's why we love God. There's always repentance for any and everything that you've ever done.
Yeah.
You have to turn away from the foolishness.
Yes.
So we don't talk about. So that is
What
that's
you
the
what you
spiritual
say?
aspect.
What you say, Rickie? Turn away from the
You
foolishness.
got to turn away from the foolish. You got to act as if you're you got to act as if you're at the urinal at the airport. All you got to do is do your business, and when you turn around, it flushes itself.
Come on, come on.
So
That's pretty
that's the
good.
part I'm talking about. But you got to talk about it. So then I'm gonna leave you on this one. So then we talked about that. Well, Rickie, what are some other things we can do? We need a massage.
Wow. Come on.
Last time we had a massage. Well, last
Wow.
time you had your pedicure and manicure, we want to know that lady ain't got no money, can't afford to pay nothing, but she want a pedicure and a manicure. That relieves the stress.
Yeah.
Mama want to get her hair done. You know why
Yeah.
she want to get her hair done? Because she done wash everybody else's hair and clothes, and ain't nobody took time out for her. That's why she want her hair washed. That's why she want her hair done. That's
Yeah.
why she got to save money to go to the beauty shop. Those are
So
ways.
you're dealing with things like self-care, putting yourself in a place where
Right.
the stresses are relieved.
Yeah, and they there. But you have to relieve them. And
Relieve
that's how
them.
you relieve them, by talking about it and working on the body, the mind, and the
Yeah.
physical aspect of it.
Yeah.
And let me leave you with this. But this is the deepest part.
Okay.
So now that we shared that, I'm going to go one more step, and then you can ask one question if you like.
Okay.
The other book was called The Body Keeps Score. This right here,
Uh-huh.
I recommend if you read it with a partner. It's deep.
Read that. Hold that up again, because the part up under it says what? Brain, mind, body,
in the healing of trauma.
In the healing of trauma.
So you can't just heal the brain. You got to heal the brain, the mind, and the
body.
So in this one, he started talking about the amygdala and the reptilia. And I don't want to go too deep because what we are. And what was deep about this one, though,
come on, y'all. Get these books, y'all. Get these books.
When you started hearing the stories of what people have gone through and what they're dealing with, and the part that made me want to cry is that he said that we just love on our children while they're kids, while they babies, and just love the hell out of them.
Yeah.
We can take away 50% of drug abuse, violence, crime, abuse. Just love the kids.
Just love.
Every time I say it, I get emotional.
I understand. I do.
We gotta love the hell out of the kids. I don't care what they do.
Right.
You gotta be there, be their safety. Be there to let them know, Daddy got you, Mama got you. I'm gonna be right there with you. Because I talk about myself. My mama loved me. My mama loved me. So I'm not arrogant, but I'm not scared of nothing. I am so secure in myself because my mama loved me.
Yes.
And when people start, well, you got this, I didn't get none of that. All I got was love. And that's why I love her.
Yeah.
But my mama loved me so much, girl. I walk in any room, I feel secure, safe. I don't give a damn where it is.
Yeah.
Because it was the loving power in this book. It talks about that.
Wow. And you know what? It's funny because I read something, I think it was this morning, that people who were taught to love will take care of you. But people who are like survivors and go through, then they're going to take from you. And so when you start to just think about what you've just laid out and how those patterns just continually to perpetuate themselves from one generation to the next generation to the next generation, and then we sit and wonder, look, we were brought up in the same house. Why they act like this? And why it's so many things that go with a house being dysfunction, and the fact that nobody talks about the dysfunction.
So let me say this before people stop. I don't give a damn about all we talking about. Forget everything I said. But don't forget this. We need to start talking.
We need to start talking.
We need to start putting it out there. Start telling on uncles. Start telling on it's the where. Yeah. We need to start telling. I'm telling you the truth. We need to not call them out. Call them in.
And call the other
thing. Have a meeting with your family. It says that. Oh, and in that other book I told you, it didn't start with you. They got a list of questions that you can go and ask your grandmothers and fathers, and that these are questions that we should be asking. Did anybody die early? Did grandma go through this? Did somebody get a divorce at a certain age? This one lady in the book, 27 years old, happily married, 2 kids. She's a prominent lawyer. Her husband does well. At 27, she sits across the table and tells her husband the relationship over with. I'm done with you. I'm tired of being with you. I don't want to be with you anymore. You can take the kids. I'm done. That are 27 goes to see a therapist. Come to find out that her grandmother and her great grandmother divorced at 27.
Come on now.
She had to go
Wow.
back to her husband crying, asking for forgiveness, and not realizing that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I want y'all to hear me, audience. Simple things at that. One other little boy, he just kept stabbing people. When he was in elementary school, all of y'all know about being stabbed with a pencil.
Yeah.
And most of the little boys that was bad in middle school, bad in elementary school, bad in high school, continue to be doing those things.
See, one of the things that I found that I have two sons, but my oldest son, I remember him coming home at Christmas time from he was in college. I think it was like sophomore, junior year. And he was like, Mom, can I use your debit card? And I was like, yeah. He said, I just need to get some gas to get a car home. And just as he was passing the Christmas tree, the lights caught his eyes. And I said, son, are you high? Yes, ma'am. I'm not, I'm not gonna lie. I have been smoking. I said, hey, give me my card back. And I said, what I did tell him was the men in our family are predisposed to drug use and drug abuse. But I'm not going to allow you to put me in the situation that, look, my mama's in and my grandmama's in with your uncle and my uncle. So it was tearing down something. I made a decision that I'm not going to continue. That was a small thing, but it was something that I identified in our family. And so if you don't talk about it, but I did tell him, I said, hey, if you're going to do drugs, you're going to be a functioning drug addict. You're going to go to school, you're going to work, but I'm not going to continue.
And I ain't going to add to it.
Look, but so there's some conversation. You have to look at that thing really. If you can see a pattern, if you identify your patterns, then you will change the purpose because that thing keeps coming and coming and coming.
I know that's true. But guess what? It didn't start with him.
Nope.
And let me add something to it. If you read the book when he talks about what happened to you, Oprah Winfrey says that people drink, smoke weed, do drugs to get regulated.
Yeah.
So the question ain't what he's doing, what's wrong with he doing, but what happened.
What happened?
And so he understands that actually it was passed down from my uncle, passed down from my mother, passed down. And guess what? That's real. Let me give you another one about my own self, and I'll let you hang up. I did mine, and I realized my mother never committed. In the question of the ACE test, it asks, was your mother and father ever divorced? Did your mother and father separate? I didn't know how to answer that question because my mother and father never were together. They never divorced. They never separated. They never was a couple. They just had sex and had a baby. There was no commitment. Well, I've been married twice. My first marriage lasted 6 months and it ended. My second marriage lasted 1 year. And but that ain't the deep part. I wasn't bothered by neither one of them. I didn't care. Okay, that ended. And then I started looking for my patterns. You ready for mine? I'm telling you about me. I started like, and I'm not what you call a womanizer, any of that kind of stuff. I love women because I love my mama. But I look for my own pattern. I even pass it down to my kids. I got 2 kids by 2 different women. My sons got 2 kids by different women. My father had kids by 2 different women. Like, wait a minute, hold up. And then I started saying, well, Dad, Queen, my nickname, Queen, when you go in a relationship with somebody, when you break up, you ain't even sad. No. I'm not sad, but not only I'm not sad, I don't even stay with the woman long enough to keep her healthy enough to go on so she can move on. Wow. But why it don't bother me? Because I realize epigenetics.
Epigenetics.
I ain't never seen my mama cry with no man. You hear what I said?
Yes, I heard you.
My mama been with 2 different men that I know. Yeah. One named Green, one named Stoney. By the time I made it home, they were gone. So they never argue. I don't argue. They never fought. I don't fight. I'm in a relationship with a woman and you argue, or if you argue at me, call me out my name or put your hands on me, the relationship over. And they like, clean. Nobody does that. I don't know what to say. I don't argue. I don't fuss. So I got to work on my own. I need some therapy because in relationships with me, if you argue with me, you dare call me out my name. You're like, well, Rickie, everybody argues. I don't. We can disagree, but we ain't got to argue about it. And I tell
Yeah,
you what, when you tell me I did something that hurts you, I'm not gonna do that no more.
yeah, yeah.
And if I did it again, that means I disrespected you and respected myself.
But you know what, Rickie? That's one thing that
I got to work on it.
but I was gonna say, when you make the decision that healthy is where you're headed and what you want, then healthy is going to be what you get. It's like when they say, when the teacher is ready, the student will
You
come,
doggone
or
right.
when the student is ready,
The
the
teacher will
teacher
appear.
will come.
You
And
doggone
so
right.
when you make that conscious decision of identifying your patterns, there are patterns in my life that
Right.
I actually set and wrote them down to
Right.
identify. And this was years ago. And
Well, you're
and I
supposed to do that through this therapy. I mean, through
it,
this trauma. You're
but
supposed to
once you
diet
when
and look
you
for the
do
pattern.
it, the one of the biggest things that it does for you is it makes you step back like you did, look at yourself.
Yeah.
But when you decide to make a change, then everything, when you change inside and
It's
you
an inside
identify
job.
things, then your exterior begins to change too.
Exactly.
So I want you to send me the names of those books. I'm going to put them out on my Remove Logic fan page on Facebook. I thank you so much for coming. I want to have you back again. I know that there's a lot that you do and a lot that you deal with, and I just appreciate you for the young men that
Thanks
you
for
are
talking
impacting.
about it too.
Yeah, of course. That's one thing that I was given this platform for, is to cause people to become unstuck. And the only way that you can is to talk about it. And once you talk about it, it takes the power away from something that we have carried on the inside. And then again, it guides us. It affects your experiences. It affects not only just your experiences, but how you deal with things, how people deal with you, and how you deal with people. Again, moving past logic. And the only thing that we can do is tear down something and give it a new logic, a new programming to change that. Go ahead.
I'm seeing people overweight, going through the stuff, and you know what most of that is? Stress.
Yeah.
They got a secret. They don't want to tell nobody.
Come on.
And you gotta leave you with this too, because I don't want anybody to go thinking they can handle it. Everybody can't handle it.
No.
You know, and so when you find people and you want to start talking about, you got to create a tribe of people, and y'all have to come to the conclusion that we're gonna share with each other. We're gonna have some list of agreements like punctuality, confidentiality, things like that, and say it. Because here's the deep part. Oh, this is deep. Everybody can't handle it. So when they come to you and you say, yeah, well, tell me, we got to talk. But when they start talking and telling you that my daddy abused me, or my brother and his friends and my mama, they saw him rape me. When they tell you that I used to sell my body, or when they tell you I used to be a crack addict, or when they tell you I was a rape victim, or they tell you I raped, you got to be able to handle that.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
And if you don't able to handle it, don't open it up. There's a saying, don't zip them down if you can't zip them up.
Right.
So be careful about that part.
My thing is, you have to have a place to lay your strength down.
Yeah, but I'm needing so much to say the strength. I'm saying that this work we talking about doing, dealing with this trauma and resilient from it, there's so many deep-rooted secrets and some very demonic stuff that's been going on in our household.
Yes.
I'm talking about that. So
and I understand, but see, when I say we carry things, and of course, now I said to you when we talked, the church is not ready for some of the conversations that need to be had.
No, not
because if one thing that I have learned as a pastor is that you have to listen intentionally for somebody to be changed, not just to pat them on the back and say, baby, I'm going to pray for you. You have to have an expectation that this person has been sent to me, not just for prayer, but because there's an answer in me. I have to have something in me that can handle, being judgment free. You got to give somebody, that's why I said to lay that strength down, because the things that we carry become the mechanisms that we think keep us strong. Let's go back to the fight, the flight or the freezing.
That's right.
Those are things that determine either, you know, the strength of your character. Hey,
That's
I'm
right.
going to run away from it, or I'm going to fight through it, or I'm going to freeze. But those are still things that cause us to have, look, the appearance of strength, but you got to be able to lay that down in a safe place. So this place, Remove Logic, to tear down some of those walls where a person can come to you and say, you know what, I went through this. It's not so much as that it's just something that you pat them on the back, either tell them don't talk about it, or you pat them on the back and say it's gonna be all right. But if they don't have the application for it to be all right, I reminded of scripture.
I gotta say something about you say that.
Scripture from me, but lead me to a rock that's higher than I. It's not always, like you said, that they got to carry it themselves. God got a rock. We know that rock to be Jesus, but somebody that's got enough Jesus in them to carry what you bring.
So let me add to that. And oftentimes we're thinking, but Mr. Rick, well, how do I? Sometimes we just there to listen. You don't even have the advice.
Listen intentionally.
I don't even want you to give me no advice. You don't even have the knowledge to give the damn advice. No, you ain't never been through this. All I really want you to do is listen to me.
Just listen intentionally.
Just listen to me.
Yeah.
And that's what I want us to be mindful of.
Yeah.
But if you can't do it, don't open it. So
don't open the door.
I'm going to be working on trying to develop what we call a healing center.
Okay.
To try to find me a place. Like different centers. I'm gonna open up with one of them close by a high school. And it's just a healing center. You come in and heal. You can do yoga. You can do Tai Chi. Or you can just be quiet, meditate. A place where they can do. And if you want someone to talk to you, then they'll be available to talk to you. And we will make the place. I'm thinking about calling it Testimonial Tuesdays, where you can just come and give your testimonies on Tuesdays. And then if with that, those people who have gone through some of the things that you're going through, we create tribes among folks who have experienced what you've experienced.
That's good.
Right. Which helps us heal from each other, because I believe there's tremendous healing power.
Yeah.
But I also believe there's no magic dust. And then I also know that violence is learned and it can be.
Yeah.
So
Thank you so much, Rickie, for coming by and talking with us today on Remove Logic. I know that this has been helpful to some. It's helped me even for the journey to unpack even more some of the things that we've left packed in there. So anytime that you want to come by, anything you want to say, you just need a platform. This platform is always open to you. As I said before, as we were getting ready to close, I know you're doing a whole lot more, but you're always doing something. So let's just come back. I want you to be able to come back. If you get the center going, you know, invite me out. I want to start doing some remote things in the community. So just let me know. But thank you so much for coming by. Yeah, I've totally enjoyed you today. You have a great day.
Thank you. You do the same.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.